So, Doug, can you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm Doug Loesel. I'm the president of LoeselShaafInsurance in Erie, Pennsylvania, and I run our administrative and property and casualty insurance division. My grandfather started the company in 1927, and my father retired in 1987. We deal in health insurance, property and casualty insurance, life insurance, just about anything that somebody needs from an insurance standpoint, we have the ability to provide.
And how did you first learn about CMIT Solutions?
We first met with Beth reviewing her insurance needs, actually. She was coming to us as a potential client. A short time after that, I saw a flyer that she had sent out offering a free network audit at a time when we were having some problems with our backups reliability, and so we gave her a call and asked her to come in.
When you say you were having trouble with backup failures, how did you know that you were having trouble? Did you try to restore something?
Well, no, we hadn't tried to restore, but our log that records all the backup activity continued to have failed backups. We had files that weren't backing up, tapes that were recording as bad, even though they were brand new tapes. And we were actually getting quite concerned about the lack of good backup that we had in the event that we did need to restore something. Fortunately, we never came down to having to restore and not having the information available, but we weren't too far away from that with one breakdown or disaster. So.
The interesting thing is I make my living interviewing people, and I interview a lot of people who are technology service customers, and I have to tell you that the most common story I hear is, well, we thought we were having backups. We were changing the tapes. We were doing all that stuff, and it turns out they either weren't configured properly, or the software wasn't working, or the tapes were defective, or we got a virus and didn't realize it, and so all the stuff was corrupt. What would happen in your business, for example, if you had a disaster and you had lost that, and it turns out your backups weren't working? What would you have had to do to restore that data? Do you have paper anymore?
Some of our operation is paperless, so that part of the operation would have taken a lot of research to go to the various insurance companies that we deal with to try and get duplicates of records, and just to restore the database would have been a monumental, I'm guessing, a several-month task to restore that information.
And then you're not sure whether you've even restored it to the original quality.
Right. There's all the correspondence and things like that we store electronically would be lost, and we would have no way of restoring a lot of that. I was always concerned about backing up to tape. We've been on probably 14 different types of tape backups, and I've never been confident that the information on there was going to be 100% reliable if we really needed it. The Guardian solution was almost a godsend to me because it was the first time that we had seen something other than, we'll back your system up and then you send it out to an off-site backup storage facility, and you do it once a day or you do it once a week. And so at one point in history, your backup may be reliable and up to date, but with information being so critical and it changing literally thousands of times a day, having that backup through the Guardian system, almost a minute-by-minute backup, makes me feel very confident that the information, if we ever had a disaster here, if we had a fire or a tornado or something of that disastrous nature, that we wouldn't lose much information.
I think a lot of people don't realize with their backup systems that they don't realize that the backups are done incrementally, and with enough time passing, in a busy office, that can be a lot of data that's missed.
A huge amount of data.
Right. And the second thing is that some backup systems will not actually back up an application that's open.
Correct.
So if you've got an application that's open and maybe never closed, that backup never is completely
We had those types of issues with our backups. That was one of the most common things, is that we were getting failures because files were open, and we were constantly harping on people that they've got to get those files closed when they leave at the end of the day, because we were doing the backup overnight. So at 5 o'clock on any given day, we had 8 hours of work that was sitting out there with no backup until that tape ran that night. And maybe we got a good backup, and maybe we didn't.
It's hard to count on employees always thinking about closing everything, because they've got tons of windows open on their computer and they don't realize which ones might be critical, and if they don't close it, then they got a problem. And rather than you having to be the marshal in town to tell everybody to do the job, technology just solves it for you.
Oh, absolutely.
As I understand, you were also having a significant amount of spam that you were dealing with. How much time were you spending, for example, personally just dealing with spam?
Well, I think each of our employees, and we have some 34 employees, that we're getting probably on an average 100 to 120 pieces of spam email a day. We have some employees who are getting more than that. But probably a bigger problem with the spam was that we were hosting our email through an Exchange server on our site, and all of that stuff was coming in and clogging up our Exchange server. So the speed at which that was operating and the amount of storage that it was taking up while that stuff was getting filtered out was just enormous.
So the server itself, which all of you are trying to connect to run your business, actually slows down, and so it's not just the inconvenience of having to get rid of the spam, it also just grinds your server to a halt. Well, going back to that spam, if you have 34 employees, I mean, how much time do you suppose you spend a day just on going through your spam? 10 minutes, 20 minutes?
Probably 15 or 20 minutes on average.
Let's be conservative and say 15 minutes and just do a little math here. So that means a day you were doing 510 minutes a day in your company, and if you do that times 250 days, we've got 127,500 minutes, and if we divide that by 60, then we're down to 2,125 hours, and divide that by 40, and so, wow.
It's a lot of time.
53.15 would be the number of weeks that spam was actually costing you in productivity. And what people don't recognize, of course, is you don't see it because it's only 10, 15 minutes at a time.
Exactly.
But that time adds up across an enterprise like yours, and so that was really costing you a significant amount of money. Now, as I understand, you're also having some hardware failures, some pieces that were going down. When that went down, when your computers went down, what did that cost you in terms of, were you out a day, 2 days? What happened?
We never were down for that length of time. Probably the worst failure that we had with a server, we might have been down 4 or 5 hours. We did have some fairly good technical people that we were working with reactively that would be able to come in and get the problem resolved and get us going, but it was always on a reactive basis. You never quite knew when to expect it. It's always at the worst possible time.
Well, you chose to do something different than probably a lot of the people in your community in that you have selected a managed services platform called Marathon from CMIT to be proactive, to try to catch those problems before they happen so that they don't go down. Now, most people, I think, still kind of think more in what we call a break-fix mentality. In other words, they just wait till it breaks and then they call the guy, and so they're out of work for 4 hours. I mean,
Right.
What's the difference? So what's the difference from your standpoint? Why did you decide that difference was worth making that investment?
The short time that we've been on the system, we've had 2 hard drives that were sending out signals that they were impending a failure. And we were able to order a new hard drive and get it installed before the failure actually occurred. So we were able to do it on our time, where we could schedule the downtime of that computer for 45 minutes or an hour, whatever it was going to take to replace the components that were showing imminent failure, and do it where nobody was really losing productive time.
Boy, if your clients with auto insurance had something like that could tell them before the accident happened, you'd be out of business. But I can see why that would be something that would give you not only a great deal of peace of mind, but also just keep you more productive. Now, how do you know that things are working well? I mean, to a certain extent, when you were working with your previous provider, you were under the impression that your system was actually working. Do you have a way to actually kind of see your system and know that it's working when you've got Marathon?
My internal IT person does use the dashboard and goes out and checks the computers and does a walkthrough of all the indicators on there herself just to see if there's anything that jumps out during the day while she's around the office.
So with this kind of system, you don't have to just rely on the word of the person working on your system. You can actually go out and look at it and make sure that this is something that is working. Have you had the experience yet where they've actually called you and said, hey, you had a problem this morning, we got on, we fixed it, and you're good to go now, but we just wanted to let you know that there was a problem we fixed?
We've had a couple of those. We've had calls and emails at home from Beth that the server is showing that the power is out. We've had a couple of power outages since we've been on through weather-related power outages, not specifically our location, but an entire portion of the city. And we were able to find out so that somebody could come in, get the systems up and running, and have everything ready next day when people come into work. Not everybody's standing around wondering why their computers are turned off.
What's Beth like to work with as a person? I mean, just her ability to communicate and work with you. What's she like?
Beth is a very energetic person, and she's brought a lot of good ideas to us and things that we've talked about around the operations, and she listens very well, and she's asked us some pointed questions, and she's come up with a couple of very creative solutions for us. The thing that works the best with me is that we know that Beth and Clay are out looking to make sure that our network and operations are running, and they're not just the folks out there waiting to sell us another computer, another printer, another monitor when something fails, that they're out there actually trying to make sure that our system is up and running reliably. And really what we've hired them for and what their job is to keep us running.